Welcome to the Creative Ticket podcast, brought to you by Pacific Video. I would like to start by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which this podcast has been originally created, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. I pay my respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people listening today. I am Geraldo Rodriguez, Sydney-based actor, writer, and director, and on this podcast I'll talk to artists from all over the world about their craft, their careers, inspirations, and insights. If you are an arts fanatic like myself, make sure to follow and subscribe so you won't miss out on new episodes. Pamela Pilawa is a Swiss performer that has traveled the world studying and performing. She specializes in comedy and clown, and she's performing in October at the Sydney Fringe Festival with a show called Restricted Access. Welcome, Pamela. It's such an honor to have you on the Creative Ticket.
Thank you, Geraldo. It's a pleasure to be here for me too. Prazer.
Prazer ter você aqui. Pamela, why comedy and why clown? What made you specialize in that language?
So actually I started a general drama school where we did a little bit of everything, from Shakespeare to contemporary, physical theater. But I genuinely myself, I've always had like a special like to comedy, to clowning. Like even as a child, I think that was always something I kind of felt comfortable to express myself, making fun. I'm a very active person as well, so I like moving, and the comedy or the clown code has a lot of physical gags, so you can there is a lot more than just with words, so you can express a lot of gags or the story with your own body. So we've did a little bit of clowning when we just started at the drama school, because it's also a way how to discover, a clown always sees everything from zero. It's like a little child who discovers and expresses its emotion. So I think it's a good way how to start and connect with the theater as well. And actually, even though you do a comedian or a comic character, and it's not a clown specifically, a lot of actors use clowning skills because it gives you this surprise, this the timing you've learned with clowning. So then I did it was 4 years of studies, and then my first job after finishing the university was in an entertainment business. So we were doing the how do you call the puppet theater. Yeah, we did puppet theater. We did clowning. In a way, it was more like we had a little script. We didn't really rehearse it. It was a little script with some jokes, with some magic, to entertain the kids and the families in the supermarket or the shopping mall. And that's how I first got like into a little bit more of clowning, let's say like this. But it was clowning can be understood in different ways, but that's how I kind of got more connected to clowning. And then there was like an opportunity to have your own show or your own little script, and then you have like had a little bit a different part. So that was like my first motivation. But pandemic started, so I was closed in 3 months. And I took the 3 months to write my own clown play. And as I said, it was always something I really felt comfortable with. And I actually started being a clown or creating my character before really moving inside what clowning all means, just out of the concept of what I've had from the entertainment industry. And yeah, that's how I started with my first show, which was with the character Payasa Viajera, clown traveler. And after that, and experiencing it already in front of the audience, I was like, wow, I want to study more about clowning, and that's how I got into the whole world of what is clowning. And there's specifically schools just focus on clowning. So yeah, and after that I've never stopped. And my third play, which you've previously mentioned, Restricted Access, has a lot of this code. I think it's less it's entertaining, but it's less from this entertainment character. There is a lot more gags coming from the clown. So yeah, they're like a little bit different codes. So yeah, that's how I kind of involved.
And for you, is comedy, you mentioned it's something that you studied as a child. You felt like I imagine you saw that you had a different vision, a different point of view, and that accompanied you throughout the years, that stayed with you throughout the years. Is comedy a remedy for you? You find it's a medicine for life?
Well, I myself, as I said, I connected was as a clown. I said it more like I felt like that as a behavior. Like I was the clown of the family. If there was a conflict, I made a joke out of it, or try to get the bad ambience out and relieve the situation through this way. But when I first started being on stage was in high school, when we had like an extra class you could take, which was being on like theater class. So we did like different plays. We did Romeo and Juliet. Then we created an own one, and it wasn't not only it was a little bit of tragedy, drama, comedy. We did a little bit of everything. But at that stage, when I was 14, I think it was I just feel connected because it was very deliberating. I think it's a way where you step into a new character and you express yourself without being judging yourself, because it's a character. I mean, it's still you, and it's still part of a character is always you, because you make the character, right? So but it's a way how to feel more free, I think. And I felt that a lot. Or when I'm on stage, like for example, as a clown, I went a lot on the streets just to speak to people and connect. And it's very funny, the difference, because as a person, even though I'm outgoing, I'm not the person who is like talking to everybody, or but as a clown you're already yeah getting attention, and then you're not judging yourself of what you're saying, or because you're creating a new connection. So I think it's, well, it can be healing, it can be a medicine, as you said, but it's also it's a part of freedom, I think, because you stop judging. You're just a character, and you connect with people in a different way. There's so many other ways than just rationally having a conversation. So that was always beautiful when I went on the street with my character, or during the theater as well as a play, when you're interacting with the audience, like how close you can feel, or sharing a laughter says much more than just having a conversation. So it's a different way how to connect. And as a young child, for me, that was a way how to explore a lot of my own personality, discover different topics. Like if you say, oh, you got to read Romeo and Juliet, maybe you're not so interested in it, but through the play and how we've played it, and it was a different way how to learn, and that's what's always have been for me.
Interesting. And Pamela, one thing that I find extraordinary about you is that you speak 7 languages. You speak Swiss German, German, French, English, Italian, Spanish, and Portuguese. how did you learn all of those languages?
So it first started with French, actually. That was just a language we had to learn in school. But then we had an option to, when you got before you got to the high school, you have to choose a main topic. So you can choose between physics, Spanish, Italian, biology, sports. Yeah, different topics, and I've chosen Spanish because I always liked languages. I don't know exactly why, but I was curious about languages and culture. So I've chosen Spanish, and I was actually very bad in Spanish. My first grades were really bad because I don't really like to sit down and study. But then they've offered us this opportunity to go abroad. So I had the chance to go to Chile as an exchange student for 1 year, living in a host family. So that was really my motivation then, and the way how I first connected with Spanish. And it's completely different if you don't have any other choice than learning the language by living there, because my host family and the colleagues in the class, they didn't really speak a lot of English. So I had no other choice. And even though you're tired and you're not consciously learning, everything around you is in Spanish. It really makes you learn the language. So of course I put a lot of motivation in it, and trying, and people being patient with me, listening till I finished my sentence at the beginning, and making 100 errors, and then they're correcting me. And that's how I've learned like the first language. And it was a life-changing experience, because after that I thought like that's the way how to learn a language. And I've always, whenever I've learned another language, I've learned it with the people living in the country. And that was my whole motivation, because it's totally different if you speak to someone in a foreign language than if you speak with the person with their language, because there is so much more they can tell you, and you can connect in another way. So that was always my motivation. And I've started in with Spanish, and then I went back. Then I had the chance to do another, like, an internship in Argentina, so I got really fluent then in Spanish. And then I decided to study in Spain because of that, because I didn't want to lose all the Spanish I've already learned. And I always had a keen interest in Brazil. So that for I went like working on summer holidays in Portugal to really study the language before going to study in Brazil, because yeah, of course you cannot follow a course as well if you don't know the language. But I did the same. I got a job in Portugal, which was as an entertainer in a camping. So we were doing shows, we were working with tourism, we were working a lot of different sport activities, and I had to often translate, or I had to speak with all the coworkers who were Portuguese. And I just created my own language, because I I didn't really know Portuguese, so I just created my Portuñol. And then I told people, yeah, because some of them, they knew Spanish or they wanted to switch to English, and I was like, no, don't worry, you keep going. And then they corrected me, and yeah, it went very quickly, because Portuguese and Spanish are very close. So I think all the Roman languages, they're very close, and having first the Spanish more like a knowledge helped me to then improve my French, the Portuguese, and other languages. So yeah.
And I think you've answered my next question, which is if learning a language is actually a way into a new culture, it's a door into a new culture. And it seems like you are very passionate about learning about new cultures. Is that so? Have you always have this type of drive into going out into a new culture and just delving into it?
Yeah, absolutely. Like that's what I love about it. Just trying and with hand and foot connect and speak somehow. Yeah, I think it also, every language discovers another part of you. It's a little similar to what a character can do to you. A language also makes you be a little bit different, because how you express in every language is totally different. I feel different if I speak one or another language, and it's always me, and of course I'm the same person, but how I express or how I communicate, it really differs depending on each language. So that's also one of the motivations. Like when you go somewhere, it's not only discovering the culture and the people with the communication and what they speak. It's also you discover more of yourself as well.
Actually, you've traveled to Chile, Argentina, and then you went to Spain. Do you see something in common between those three countries other than the language?
That's a difficult question, because I feel like they're very unique. All of those countries are pretty different, and also I think it's hard to compare because the the stage in which, or the at what time I went to those countries was so different. So my experience in each country was very different. It's very different if you go and study in a country, the environment you're in, than if you go and live with a family. If you're only like a teenager, the experience you live is very, very different. But being common, yeah, I mean, it's all I mean, still, since it's Spanish-speaking countries, they have still a lot in common. The language makes a lot. But I don't know. I can feel more about the differences than the. Yeah, but as I said, it's like I've experienced. I have different memories of each country.
And I imagine Spain has played a big part in your artistic career because you studied performing arts in Spain, in Madrid. Do you still carry what you learned in performing arts school and some of the Spanish culture with you?
Yes, absolutely. I think it was at the beginning very hard because when you start with drama school um, and try to knowledge and text and say it from your own, a lot of emotions, if you haven't lived through them as a child, or you don't have as much a connection to what the language is, it's very hard to really connect. It's always like because of course it's hard as itself already, because you're learning a script and then you're saying it, and then you have to kind of make it yourself, right? But being in another language, that took me quite a long time to really feel the emotions of what I was saying, because I was just more trying to learn and say the Spanish words. But yeah, I think it it was where my career as an actress or as a clown started. So I've learned a lot about how Madrid particularly works, the theater ambience over there, and that always will be part of my formation or my profession. So yeah.
Is there something in particular that you feel you still go back to and you say, yeah, I still do this because that's how I learned it in Madrid? Or is it different because now you're performing in another language, so you have to find new resources?
So I think it will be very curious because I've already had the experience like in acting in front of Spanish audience, Portuguese audience, or Swiss audience, and all the audiences are very different. So Spanish is a very outgoing country, a very outgoing language as well. Like, you know, they speak out, they say their emotions, they're very expressive, I think, and that. Yeah, that maybe it answers your question, the previous question, that I'm very expressive and I feel comfortable being expressive, and I took that onto me because in Switzerland I remember that we're not as expressive. I was always a little bit more like, as I said, active, but I felt like the bizarre one. Meanwhile, in Spanish and in the ambience of the theater as well, I started expressing myself a lot with body language, and I took that out from Spanish culture, I think. And now, as you say, I think that's something in common from the three countries you've said before. Like, they have a lot of, it's different because Argentina has like a lot of different codes, which they only use in Argentina, not in Chile nor in Spain. But yeah, that sticks a lot to me. Um, those all this body language.
And I also ask that because you have a character and imagine a theater company called Payasa Viajera, and you started that when you were living in Spain, right? And you kept that character with you after you moved away from Spain. How did Payasa Viajera came to be?
So I've did it actually in different languages. When I was in Spain, I worked as well with the French school, Portuguese communities. I acted in Switzerland as well. So I've changed it depending on which country I was in, and the character itself, yeah, it kind of sticks the same way. As I said, it's a very expressive and very energetic character as well. So there is a lot of body language within the story. So I didn't feel that much difference expressing or acting the character depending on the language. Of course, yes, like the jokes or how the audience responds is totally different. So, for example, when I did it in Switzerland, um, the Swiss audience was really enjoying it, but they were not all the time saying stuff or laughing out loud. So it's a different reception, but the character still kept the same because at some point, it's like when I started, when you start creating something, I work a lot with my body and start creating. But then at some point, when you have your show, you just mark the things like the rhythm, the movements. There is always part of I always leave a little bit of improvisation in it as well to kind of interact with the audience. But yeah, you stick to your movements and the story. And also, I think kids are very similar at the same time. Like once you get this connection with the kids, I don't know, since I feel like very motivated all the time, I think I create this connection with the kids very easily because they feel like, oh, this is fun and we want to join in. And I didn't feel so much difference regarding the kids' interaction from each country. It was very similar because they feel the joy, they want to join in, they stand up. I do a lot of as I said, Payasa Viajera came from the entertainment industry, so I did a lot of like, let's copy this or let's do, and then they interact as well and they do it as well, and they love doing that. They love like being part of the whole show rather than just watching it. So once you get the kids engaged, doesn't matter where they're coming from, they're into it.
And do you find there is an element of a ritual in that type of performance or in that type of work? And I'm asking that because I find that sometimes in our contemporary world we forget a little bit about how important it is to join a crowd, to join a community, to join a group of people and either watch something or dance together or sing together, because we think of those things as hobbies rather than as something that should be part of our lives. But then someone comes and teaches drama or teaches clown or does a play with the kids, and all of a sudden we get that same feeling of union and connection again. Is that one of the reasons why you went into the performing arts world?
I think it wasn't one of the reasons, but as I'm more and more in this, and I'm a teaching artist as well, and it's so rewarding. I think that's one of the most rewarding things, when you feel that the people in your audience are sharing something in common at this moment, even though they haven't seen each other, never. They're laughing together, they're doing movements together, or like what you said, it's kind of a sense of community. I really love it. So, for example, when I'm teaching drama, and then at the beginning, the first day, it's always kids are coming and they're like a little shy or they don't know each other, and then we start playing. We create. There is no judgment. We do different movements, different improv theater, and then along the week they're like, and at some point I was like, oh, did you already know each other, because they're like really close to each other? And I was like, no, we've just met here. And I'm so surprised how it can change, right? And the same, like maybe adult audience, it takes a little longer, but still, like, you with a laugh or with sharing these moments, you already um, cut the this awkward silence, or this uh, this moment of fear to connect with someone else, because you already can share something about the story even after or before the show. Or so, yeah. um I think I started more as on a personal way. Like, I felt just very good doing it. And I like to explore myself more, or get to know myself more through the theater. And throughout you're working on this, you're seeing the impact you have in others as well. I started to really enjoy that as well. But as a big, like, first motivation, I think it was a little bit more selfish, let's say, like this.
And do you find it? You were saying that kids sometimes will be shy at first, but then they'll like go and they'll enjoy. Adults sometimes take a little longer, or sometimes not. Is it different performing for children and for adults?
Yes, it's totally different. A child is so honest, and it's like you engage them or you don't engage them. And happily, I kind of always engage them. But sometimes also I need to stop, because they're getting so motivated, and then they're almost on the stage because they want to be part of all of it. But it's they're not like sitting there and, oh, I'm gonna judge. No, if they enjoy, they will show it all. They will give it all. They will play. They will laugh. They will, like, they will be into your story. And adult always, I had this feeling, was coming first. Okay, let's see what this girl or what this character is going to do. A little reserved, right? You need to convince them first, and they're not like, oh, this is going to be great and I'm part of this and I'm going to make this show great because it's also depending on me. You feel like, no, this person needs to convince me, this show needs to convince me, and if they convince me, well, maybe I'm going to relax, I'm going to participate. And it's fun because it's such a different reaction. And me myself in the audience, I'm a little bit reserved as well, and it really takes some time. And even sometimes I'm enjoying a lot, but I'm not laughing that much or participating, or so it's a different. It's interesting to see that, because as an actor or a clown on stage, you shouldn't judge yourself while you're doing, because people are always reacting differently, and they're thinking different things, and they're being touched in different moments. That's what I like with clowning, or with my latest show as well. It's not only laughing; there is also an emotional part, and there are different feelings the people are going through with the show. So yeah, it's a totally different reaction.
And how do you keep motivated? How do you, as an artist, keep motivated towards your craft, towards your career, towards the things you'd like to accomplish and to conquer? How does it work for you?
So one of the things, and I think it's very important, is always do stuff you like without needing an outcome. For example, when I came here, because of course at some points it's a pressure as well, and some point it's a profession as well. So, for example, when I've worked in an English theater company in Spain, we had 3 to 4 shows every day, and of course sometimes you're exhausted and you're just doing it because you have to do it. So it's not only fun all the time, but and you feel some pressure as well. So sometimes you don't want to act because it's like, oh, what are they gonna say, or how is this gonna go? So I think it's always very healthy to do something else. For example, I started here in Sydney Trapeze School, a circus school where I meet other clowns and we share just different tricks. So I started loving the hat. So I do a lot of training with the hat, and for now I don't have anything. Well, I have a lot of ideas, but for now I'm not doing it with an outcome. I'm not rehearsing the hats because I need to show it already, or I have a date where I have to have a show on set. So I'm just enjoying it, and also every day I try like to do my exercises, voice, vocal warm up, body warm up, just because I like it as well, and not because I need to provide a show, or I need to um, do it. So I think that is a very fundamental part, and then the goals. And I think setting a date is always needed. That's how I started as well. I think I would never have put up a show if I wouldn't have had a date, because in pandemic there was a little festival they were still doing in north of Spain. So they didn't pay, but they were like inviting people from all over the country, and or like different countries, and you got food and you could stay there. So I called this person because I've heard about this festival years ago. I called this person and said, yeah, I have a show and I would like to show it there. And he was like, yeah, you can come. I didn't have the show. I had nothing, but I had already committed. So I knew on the 3rd of August, 2020, I have to do this show. And you know, there are days you're motivated, and even though you like it, there are days you're not motivated. But if you have a date, you will work on it, and not every day is an exciting day and there is an outcome, but it really helps. And the same for me here, Sydney Fringe was like that. That's a great opportunity to start over here and make a beginning here. So I had the show already, but like making your community, starting to sell your show, that's like I have this date, and that helps me to stick on it and keep me motivated, because I have a commitment, and sometimes it's hard to be committed with your own. So I always try to find external commitments, even though it's for myself. I try to find an external commitment because it's just easier.
And do you see your work always as a process, or do you sometimes think in terms of success or failure?
That's a good question. It's hard. Lately I try to be more positive, because I think social media is affecting a lot, and I personally also comparing myself a lot, and I haven't reached that or that. But it's all about focus. It's all about where you put your energy to. So instead of saying myself, oh, I'm not there, or this person is already doing that, or it's like, no, what do I want? And there are different ways how to do things. So for example, what I didn't want to do when I came to Australia was like being all over the place again, because that's what I did when I just finished university. I was like going into every little project, spreading my energy everywhere, and there were even projects they didn't really value you. And I'm not saying value just in money, I'm saying value your time, the outcome of the shows. So now I feel like I'm more focused on my show, and I want to go goal by goal instead of doing it all over the place all at the same time. And there are periods, for example, now it's a period where I'm more focusing on being a teaching artist as well, and not as much on stage. Like I had this period where just before coming, I was 3 to 4 days, 3 to 4 shows per day, from Monday to Friday on stage. And now I'm not on stage as much, but I'm not less artist because of that. So Yeah, I think it's more about trying to have this positive speech and acceptance that not everything is all the time an outcome, and because social media is like showing all the time, well, wow, this person is on a festival in in October in Sydney, and have been there and there. That's what we show, but of course there are times you question yourself, you have doubts, or you feel like, oh, I'm not on the stage right now, so I'm failing because I should, and then I'm studying a lot more. Like, also being an actor does not only mean being on stage. Like, when you have your own project, you're a producer, you're everything a little bit. I'm learning a lot about marketing as well right now, and I really like that too. So I think, yeah, there is always times and times, but I try to acknowledge what I have already done and be happy with that, and then create more goals and work towards it.
Really interesting. It's really inspiring to listen to you, Pamela. And still on that same topic, do you feel like you play on your strengths, or do you try to reach for something that you consider as something that you still to learn? Do you feel like you choose something that you see, oh, this is gonna be hard, but that's what I'm gonna try? Or do you stick to things that you find, oh, this is working really well for me, let me just keep focusing on this?
I think a little bit of both. So I'm generally not in my comfort zone. Like, acting in different languages as well makes it difficulty. Then I aim for, like, now my aim was having a certain amount of public. So I aimed for a venue in the Sydney Film Festival who would give me this it's like, because you could like choose and say, oh, I want to have 40 people as an audience, and I was like, no, I want to have 110 people per day as an audience, and that's a little bit more scary because it's much harder. If there is good energy, of course, it gives you a lot more energy back, but it's also harder to have 110 person engaged in your show. So I'm trying, like, to set the goals a little bit higher than where I would feel more comfortable. It's like, yeah, if I have a show for 10, 15 people, I wouldn't really be very as nervous. Sometimes I'm nervous even with a very low with not some with how do you say I forgot with a lower audience, yeah,
With a smaller crowd,
audience, that was the word, sorry, with a smaller audience. But yeah, I'm trying to step out, and coming here and doing everything in English. English is not one of the languages I feel most comfortable with. I think Spanish or German are like the ones I feel most comfortable with. So there is always a challenge, yes, and I'm focusing on right now with my show. It's true, those are characters I'm feeling very comfortable with because it was out of my creation as well. So they have a lot to do with what I like to create. As I said, it's moving, active. For me, it would maybe be harder to make a character who is just calm or drama, but I'm totally up to it too. I like challenges. It's just, yeah, there is different moments, and I'm focusing right now on those characters and those shows. But if there is another challenge coming up or doing something different, I'm totally up for it.
Now, going back a little bit to your experience abroad, your international experiences, you lived in Brazil, you went to Unicamp, which I also coincidentally attended a few years ago. What a lovely place. I miss it so much. And you did a play, you performed in Portuguese as well. I'd like to learn to listen to you about that experience. How was it like to live in Campinas, to perform in Portuguese, and to go to Unicamp?
That was absolutely an amazing experience. I think I've learned so much. I only was there for a half a year, but it was impressive. I've I was very motivated as well, so I took like classes from each year, not only from the year I was supposed to. I took all of them and the dances, and there's a lot of influence from the Brazilian dance as well, which is very enriching as an actor, I think. Having this connection with the earth and these movements. So that was one part I really, really liked because it was very connected with the body. We had a lot of teachers teaching us different styles, either dancing or then also we had a routine every day at 8 o'clock. We had our warm up, uh, different body movements, with also viewpoints, so the spacious movements, consciousness. So it was very intense. It was very intense, and I really felt a difference after those 6 months as well as an actress, because and it helped me for till nowadays that I'm still sticking to my trainings because that's what I took out of those months in Brazil. Also acting in Portuguese, as I said, I've learned Portuguese before going there, so it was very helpful. But yeah, of course, it was a challenge. But the thing is that we took a story which was already written, and we created different scenes out of our improvisation. So it didn't need to be one by one script, or it wasn't Shakespeare or something like that. So it was very common language. So I could like express myself in my language as well. So it was a little easier to feel connected to the words I said than if it would have been, for example, Shakespeare or in Portuguese. So yeah, I don't know, did I answer this question or
Sure. And you said that you still those trainings that you started or that you practiced in your time in Brazil, you still think about those or you still practice those. What is it like? Do you consider that the actor is supposed to train some sort of technique to prepare for a new role, or just as like an athlete that has to warm up every day and practice, or a musician that has to practice their instrument? Is that something that you recognize as Unicamp gave you?
Yes, absolutely. I think a big part of an actor is that our body is our instrument. So you got to have your body prepared all the time. It's like a singer as well. They're training all the time. So sometimes you have auditions, sometimes you don't have an audition. But if you haven't trained, your body wouldn't like be there. Your voice wouldn't be there where we should. I think it's a constant training, and that's totally one thing I've took out from Unicampi, to have this consistency with my voice, with my body, whatever you do. But yeah, the better you know yourself as well. Like when I teach classes, I do like to do a lot of awareness exercises as well, because I think it's something you need to train. And when you're acting, that's the difference as well. When you're acting alone or when you're acting with another actor, you need to be aware what he's doing and listening to what else is going on besides the words. So nowadays, I think with having our main focus on devices and having videos already made and stuff, it's a little bit harder to explore the other senses. So I think it's a constant training which is needed. And of course, for each role, then you have different challenges and you have different things you have to rehearse. But as as an instrument, you have always to have it prepared.
And you also trained in Commedia dell'Arte in Ferrara, which is also a coincidence, a city that I also traveled to. Wonderful place, wonderful ice cream, wonderful people. And you trained Commedia dell'Arte. Is Commedia dell'Arte something that still has a place in today's performing arts, or is it more so of a training that you do to keep aware, to keep a focus, to keep quick as an actor, as a performer?
So I think it's both, actually. It's a very good training. It's very nice seeing like how your body can express and how you can change your body and use this body work within your characters, having or not having those characters or masks on you. But also, I think now that the world is open, like to have mixed contemporary theater with commedia dell'arte, clowning, like different languages combined. It's not just it needs to be the typical story which was created years and years ago. It's true there are a lot of like commedia dell'arte always has like a script and then it's improvised as well, but there is like how it should go or how the characters go through, the story goes through. But I think there is a lot of new ways how to include that as well in contemporary theater. Yeah, that's actually one of my ideas for the future as well, like creating something together, not only from clowning, also together with commedia dell'arte. But yeah, maybe some of the texts, if you took it right as they were written, they're a little old for now. But as I said, I think it can be both. It can be a training and it can be something which is very accurate and very new still.
And from all of these different experiences, which is like you've traveled to different continents, you've went to different cultures, to different countries, what is it that you think that you hold or you identify with the most? Is there a Swiss performer, Pamela, or is there a Spanish performer, Pamela, or is there a Brazilian performer, Pamela, or an Australian performer, Pamela? What is that? What is it that you find that helps you as a performer today?
I think all of it, depending on where you move. As I said, in theater or with your own characters, I think it's a mixture. It's not, oh, this is a Swiss clown, or it's a mixture of all these countries, this experience I've lived. Those enriched me a lot. So kind of all of this. But for example, when I do auditions for movies or publicity, you're generally more, or I was generally more asked like, oh, the foreigner, right, or the German speaker. So I stick more to those roles. Or in Spain, it was a lot of, she's foreigner, so she does the English speaking parts, even though I'm not from England or an English speaking country. Yeah, so yes, I was saying that was a little bit of each. And for example, in the theater, it was more that I feel like I am the whole of it, because every country or every culture or every experience enriched myself. So when I put myself into the characters or create my own characters, there is all of it included. That's why I like to play a lot with languages as well when I do characters or when I do my own show. But when I work with publicity or movies or auditions, I feel that I stick more into a label. So I explore more the foreigner or the German character. Or when I was in Spain, they were asking for English characters. So I explored more those labels, and I promoted myself as well more in that way, because I feel like that's the way how to get into the business. But then you can explore all kind of characters. I think every person, you need a lot of practice, but I think we're all able to do a lot of different characters. It's just sometimes it's already set what we feel like this person should be.
Interesting. And now a little bit about restricted access. Your show that you're performing at the Sydney Fringe Festival. How did that show start? And do you feel like it's harder to perform a solo?
So the show started when I was motivated to do another character, also clown character, but I wanted to explore more a family audience, not only aim to kids. I wanted to have a show or tell a story which moves emotions in adults. So it's actually a show where there is a lot of messages or a lot of outcome or ideas directed to older audience like adults, but at the same time the code, the game, the play, the gags, it works very well for children, even though they don't get the same story out of it, because the story itself tells much deeper things about society as well. So that was my main motivation. I wanted to explore something more, something deeper, something which also asks a lot of questions about society. And then I started working together with a director, with a costumist, a girl who prepared my props and sets. So it was more teamwork. Rather than my first show, I did it kind of all myself. I always have asked a lot of questions to different people to have advice and keep working. But this last show was more a teamwork where everybody was putting in their ideas. So the dramaturgy also was not only coming from me. We've created it from scratch, with body work and a lot of rethinking as well, but a lot of putting ourselves improvising about different topics. But I created it together with my director. So it's a show we've created both together. And that's how it started. So I was working. It was funny because I was working with this theater company where we traveled all around Spain to different villages. As I said previously, we were acting 3 to 4 shows per day. And then in the afternoon, in the hotels or wherever we stayed, I created more content for my own show. So it was, it was during a year. We had like some weekends or some weeks where I was staying in Spain, we created in person, but then there was a lot of work done as well in the hotel rooms where I filmed myself. I started creating, I put those ideas or was writing, reflecting about different topics. So yeah, it was a different process, and it's it's always a work in progress. I think a show never ends. As you move on, as you have new inspirations, if you have new feedback as well. I'm curious of how it will be here in Australia, because Australian audience is probably different. So this will give me a different feedback. The Australian context is different here as well. So what people take out of the show, even though it's in universal language and speaking about different topics which you can relate from everywhere, I think what you take out is pretty different in where you're at or where you're living, in which cultural context you're at. So yes. And what was the other question? I've lost myself.
If you find it hard to perform a solo show.
So I think both has its difficulties. I think it's easier to have the energy and have the audience under control because you're the main character, so you're in charge of everything. So whenever you have the people engaged, you know you have them, and you're not alone. I never feel alone on stage because it's always a conversation. It's always the feedback people give to me, so the more feedback I receive, actually, the better I I act or enjoy it. So sometimes people feel like, oh, we shouldn't interrupt, but actually that helps a lot. Like whatever, more as a clown, if somebody says something, or that's just a gift. Everything is a gift. Like whatever people do is a gift. So I've never felt alone on stage in that way. And when people say, wow, it's 50 minutes or 1 hour show, wow. I feel it's very short. It goes so quickly because it's a constant conversation. But for example, of course, it all depends on you. That's the difficulty. But when you work with someone else, there are other difficulties. As I said, you need to listen all the time. You cannot just make your show and ignore, or you need to give, and you need to feel present on stage even without speaking, because the focus, you need to be aware of where is the focus when you work with other actors, because it's not always on you, and you need to maintain the whole energy even though you're not in the spotlight at some moment of the story, and you need to know what is important in which scene, which tells a story. So if I am trying to get my attention, but actually what I'm, or my character in that moment is doing, would rather not tell the story, I need to know where the place is in each moment. So that's difficult, I think, to maintain that energy, but knowing where the story and what the story in each moment is telling. But if you're alone, you're always having this show, unless you, of course, at some point you're putting the focus as well on an object, for example. So you're projecting now the attention to the object, but it's still you putting the attention to the object. So you're in charge of manipulating the energy level of the story. And if you're alone, you're in charge of that alone. And if you're working with others, it's a you have to figure it out together. So I think it's different challenges.
And for you, produce yourself your show and to put it out on the fringe, is that part of an effort, a bigger effort to produce and to not work just as an actor but also as an entrepreneur? Do you find that is the actual way for artists nowadays to produce themselves?
I think definitely, yes. I think it's a huge challenge, because now I feel a little bit more on ease with it. But at the beginning, these are different professions. So a producer is a really tough profession, and the people, they study it, and at some point you're getting out of your university, and of course nobody's just calling you like, oh, hi Pamela, you want to be an actress? Well, come here, I have a play for you. For me, to get involved, and more jobs came up with other companies, thanks to what I did as a producer with my own show, because that's why I was entitling myself. I was like, it doesn't matter if somebody calls me, because I'm going to be on stage anyways. Because I sold my show. I went to theaters, even though when I started, it was very, very small. I did shows for very, very few people. But I was every single weekend, I was on stage training. That was the best training ever, because it's what you get out of it. Like, even, doesn't matter. You're there. It's the best practice, because as I said, I practice a lot on my own too. But it's not the same. You need the audience to practice and see what works, what doesn't work. How can you connect? How can you cannot create a connection or train a connection if there is no audience. So yes, but it was very overwhelming at the beginning, because I felt like, I got to make my money out of this. I am a producer. I'm a marketing. I'm a whatever. I was at all the different jobs at the same time. I only studied being actress or clown, and it's a lot to take on. Also, to be an entrepreneur, there are MBAs, there are courses to be an entrepreneur. I'm actually reading a lot about it, because I'm really interested in it as well. I figured out that that's something that I'm started to be interested in. while doing it, right? Of course, also because of the scarcity and the necessity to like make it work. But at the beginning, it was a lot to take on because you feel like you don't have time. You got to make money out of it right away. You need to know everything, and you're just overwhelmed. I didn't really had um, other colleagues who were in the same situation because most of them they took other jobs or were doing auditions. Meanwhile, I was doing focusing on my show to get into the business. So I think it's very important to create your people who are in the same situation, so you can ask, you can. And while I was doing it, I created I got to know a lot of people, and that helped a lot because it's like, hey, how would you work with this budget, or what do you consider? And then you learn and you do, and you learn by doing, and it's totally different because at some point, of course, in the university we had a little bit of production as well. We studied a little bit, but you don't realize how important it is because you're not connected within real life. So when you're doing something and you feel the impact of what you're doing is right there, the learning process is totally different. So whenever now I'm learning something about production or entrepreneurship, I feel like, it inspires me because I can right away try and adapt it to what I'm already doing and improve all the time. So Sydney Fringe is also a platform. Now they're helping a lot as well with different Excel sheets or whatever we have to take in account. And I already know because I already have a baggage, but then there is new things I didn't know. So you can, and you already can practice it because it's also already going to an outcome. It's not just, we're in a school and we're getting these Excels and we need to do some production. No, it's real. It's real. I'm really doing it. And the more and more as I said, the third project, I was very happy because I've worked with other people, so I could relay other jobs to other people, but I knew what it is to have this because I've gone through. So doing a lot of different things, it makes you realize what makes part of having a project. So, and you value each part of these jobs. So that's part of growing. And now more I want to like include more people and delegate and say, look, but you have already an understanding or a feeling of what you want because you have gone through.
That's really inspiring because I agree. I think when you are able to produce yourself, at least you can have a personal project that will always motivate you to keep doing and keep going, and that's just wonderful.
Yeah.
Pamela, I have one final question, which is the question I ask all the guests on the Creative Ticket, which is, what makes you you?
Nice. I've heard this question. Let me think about it. You've mentioned a lot of it. I think all these multicultural, linguistic curiosity and adapting myself into different areas, that's what makes me as an artist kind of special. Because it's also what you're putting on stage or what characters you create has a lot to do what you've already lived through, and all these little experiences like they really enriched me in a way of how I think about the world, how I want to have the world connected, and that's what I transmit a lot with my plays, and I aim it to that as well. So it's not only about the topic, not only about the laughter, it's about those communities, those different people who don't know each other, and more in Sydney is very multicultural, but I think everywhere in the world there is so much mixture right now, and so important to feel that connection, even though we're from a different background, we're from different countries, we're from different cultures. It is so important to feel that connection, And that's what I, as an artist, really aim. And I think that's what makes me special in that way, that I feel that whole connection in myself. I wouldn't describe myself as a Swiss clown or a Swiss artist only because I'm all of this. I don't describe myself as a country or as a nation. It's all these different things and these different languages who makes me being Pamela.
That is a beautiful answer, and I think it's so accurate, so precise, because when I see you, when we talk, when we I don't actually I'm not able to put you in a box and say, yeah, Pamela is Swiss, or Pamela is Brazilian, or Pamela is a clown, or it's that curiosity, I think, that strikes people when they meet you. Thank you. Thank you so much, Pamela, for being on the Creative Ticket. It has been an honor, and it has been really inspiring to listen to you, to listen to your experiences, and to be able to learn a little bit about your career and about your work so far. And we'll be there for restricted access during the Fringe.
Yes, thank you so much. It was very nice. I felt very comfortable. There were very good questions, and yeah, I'm looking forward to keep collaborating.
Thank you for listening to the Creative Ticket podcast. If you enjoyed the episode, please remember to share this with your friends and family and subscribe so you can stay up to date with new episodes. Feel free to reach out to hello@pacificvideo.com.au for feedback and suggestions. We would love to hear from you. Take care.